Good morning, everyone. Well, as introduced by Chris, I work for Interpolis. I don't know if you're familiar with Interpolis, but it's one of the largest insurance firms in the Netherlands. It's situated in Tilburg, and we have all kinds of insurance. For example, health insurance, life insurance, damage insurance. And what we do every day is we pay out when our customers suffer from financial or material losses. But we also see that they suffer from emotional losses every day. And next to just paying out the damage claims, we also want to focus on preventing those damages. For example, preventing car accidents. And for us, it will also be beneficial if clients will have less damage, because then we have to pay out less damage claims. So that's a win-win situation. And an important problem that we face nowadays is that a lot of people are using their telephones in traffic. So of course you all know that the smartphone is a big part of our lives, but it also continues in traffic, and that has negative implications for traffic safety. And I am here today to tell you something about that problem, and we also want you to help us solve that problem. So at the end of my talk, Chris will tell you something about the assignment, and well, we would like it if you would give us some advice on how to tackle this problem. Okay, I will tell you something about the problem. How big is the problem? How many people use their telephones? And what is the increased risk of using your telephone in traffic? I will also tell you something about the possible causes that we found in literature. And why is it so difficult for people to stop using their telephones in traffic? We also did a big study together with SWOF, that's a scientific research organization about traffic safety. And we did a big survey among 4,000 citizens in the Netherlands. I would like to tell you something about the design of that study, and that study resulted in a data set, and that data set will be accessible for you to do some analysis on. Okay, the problem. Well, first of all, a question for you. Who uses their telephone sometimes when cycling? Can you... Okay. Well, that's super a lot. When we look at Dutch citizens in general, we see that 65% of the people uses their telephone in traffic. And it depends on which traffic rule. But when looking at the bike, I think I saw here like 90% of you guys doing that. But of the Dutch citizens is like 54%. In the car is 62%, and as a pedestrian is more than 80% of the people that sometimes uses their telephone in traffic. And when you look at the total driving time, it comes down to 9% of the total driving time that people are doing something on their phones. Well, let's take a look at what do people do on their phones when they are in traffic. There are several tasks they can do. And in general, you see that most people use the telephone for hands-free calling, sending and reading messages. When you look at the ages of people, then in general you see that young people use their telephone most in general, but also in traffic. They will use their telephone most. In this graph, I don't know if you can all see it, but at the horizontal axis, you see the age, and at the vertical axis, you see the amount of telephone use in traffic. And the color lines represent the traffic rule, and then you see, for example, that for the traffic rule of the car, that most people use their telephones between 25 and 35 years old. So when people just got their driving license at 18 to 24, you see they don't use their telephones as much, but when they increase a little bit of age, then they do. And you also see that people that drive a lot, people that spend most time on the road, use their telephones most. So people that drive more than 20,000 kilometers a year, of them more than 90% uses the telephone in the car. So that's quite alarming. So what are the risks of using your telephone in traffic? Well, you have different kinds of distraction. First of all, you're physically distracted because you're holding your telephone in your hands. You are oddly distracted. Thank you. You're oddly distracted because of the sounds that your telephone makes, and because maybe sometimes you have someone on the phone. You're visually distracted because sometimes you're looking at your phone, like entering a message or dialing a telephone number. And also you're cognitive or mentally distracted because with your mind you are at the telephone call or the message that you just got. And these distractions, they all have negative implications for traffic safety. For example, it lowers reaction time to 20 to 40%, and also you can miss relevant visual information. For example, an important traffic sign or a car that's switching lanes. You don't see that because you are busy with your telephone. And an often heard question is if hands-free calling is safer than handheld calling. And intuitively, you would say, yes, that is safer because you don't have your telephone at hand. However, scientific studies don't show that. So studies until now, they show that hands-free and handheld calling are almost equally bad for traffic safety. Experiments also show that even the presence of your telephone can be distracting. They did a big experiment with more than 500 students, and they asked those students, one group they asked to leave their telephone at their desk where they could see it, and another group they would ask if they could leave their telephone in their pocket or in their purse, and another group they would ask if they could leave their telephone in another room. So they had 3 conditions, and then they asked the students to do several tasks to test their problem solving and working memory. And afterwards they looked who scored best on these tasks, and then they saw that the group that put their phones in another room scored significantly higher on all tasks that they had to do. And they explain this by the fact that even the presence of your phone, and you see your phone, then your attention is divided between your phone and the task that you have to do. So even the presence, your performance can suffer from the presence, and they saw that students that were most dependent on their phone even performed worse. And when they asked students if they thought, do you think that your phone, the location of your phone is a factor in your performance, 85% of the students didn't thought their phone would be a factor in that. In the US, they did a big naturalistic driving study. First I will explain what a naturalistic driving study is. So the numbers that I just showed you, about 65% uses their telephone in the car, is self-reported behavior. So just in the questionnaire you ask people and they give an answer. But actually the best way, of course, is to observe real behavior. And you can do that with a naturalistic driving study. So they equipped 3,500 cars with data acquisition systems, like cameras, so they could really observe behavior. And then you see that in 2/3 of the accidents, the driver was distracted right before the accident. And the mobile phone is a big cause of that distraction. Okay. I will tell you what you see here in this matrix. So you have different kinds of behaviors that they observed in that study. And in the first column, you see the odds ratio, and in the second column, you see the baseline prevalence. So how much of the time is this behavior observable? And then you see that tasks that you have to do where you look at your phone. So your eyes are not on the road but on the phone. They have the highest increased accident risk. For example, if you enter in a telephone number on your telephone, the risk on an accident is 12 times higher. And if you type in a message, so a cell text, then the risk of an accident is 6 times higher. So you can also say, okay, but what if a passenger is sitting next to you and talking to you? Isn't that distracting? Well, that's also distracting. That's factor 1.4, interaction with adult teen passenger. However, if you're talking to a passenger, then that passenger is also looking at the road. So if you're facing a dangerous situation, most of the time the passenger will shut up or maybe even say, watch out. And when you're talking to someone at the other end of the phone, someone cannot see what you are facing. Okay, well, an interesting question, of course, is why do people use their phones in traffic, and why is it so difficult for people to stop that behavior as it is so dangerous? Well, an important concept in prevention literature is risk perception, and that is actually a combination of the probability of a risk occurring and the consequences of the risk. In other words, you can also say, okay, how dangerous do people think this behavior is? And you see that also with using your telephone in traffic, you see a negative relationship between risk perception and behavior. So people who perceive it as very dangerous, they will do it less. However, you still see, and that's very interesting, that people find it very dangerous but do it anyway. So in this table you see how dangerous people think it is using your telephone in traffic. And then, for example, for driving, 92% of the people think it is very dangerous. And logically, they think it's more dangerous if you're moving, so really driving or standing still, for example, in front of a traffic light or a traffic jam. Marketing communication efforts that try to influence people to use their telephone less often use risk perception. So they try to increase risk perception of people, so they try to tell people how dangerous it is, and they hope, okay, if people think it is dangerous, they probably will stop. This is a fear appeal. So a fear appeal is also something that you see, for example, on cigarette boxes. It tries to scare people, and they often think, okay, if people are scared, then they would think it is very dangerous, and then they would automatically stop. The question is if that is really so, because people already think it is very dangerous. Interpolis also made a video to increase risk perception of people. I would like to show it to you. It's in Dutch, so I don't know if everyone will get it.
Kan je eens vertellen wat je net hebt ervaren?
60 is best hard. En als je dan ook nog dus dat soort dingen gaat doen, ja, dan ben je natuurlijk niet goed bezig.
Ik wil je graag voorstellen aan Koen.
Hoi, Esmee.
Kom.
Hoi.
Ik zit op een vrijdagmiddag in de auto met mijn kark te klooien. Ik probeer een nummer terug te zoeken. En toen ik opkeek, stond het opeens stil voor me. Dus ben ik met een snelheid van 90 km per uur op een auto voor mij geknald. Ik stap uit en daar zie ik een vrouw achter het stuur zitten die niet meer volledig bij bewustzijn is. En ik zie dat er 2 kindjes op de achterbank zitten. Ik hoor ergens achter me van de kindjes zijn oké. Waardoor ik die eigenlijk min of meer vergeten ben en me helemaal gericht heb op waar ik van uitging dat hun moeder was. En dan zie je een traumahelikopter landen. Dan weet je dat het heel erg mis is. Ik heb meteen aangegeven, ja, ik was met mijn telefoon bezig. Het was mijn fout. En steeds heb ik maar gevraagd, ja, maar hoe is het nou met die moeder? Nou, met die moeder, ze zal het halen, maar ze is wel zwaar gewond. Maar het jongetje op de achterbank heeft op dit moment 10% overlevingskans. ja, dan stort je wereld echt in. Uiteindelijk mag je naar huis gaan, maar om 11 uur 's avonds stond er weer politie voor de deur. En die vertelde mij toen dat het jongetje overleden is.
I'm just curious to know, did anyone seen this video before? Yeah? Okay. Well, it's a true story, by the way. And it usually touches people. However, still the question is, will this really motivate people to change their behaviors? Okay, so why is it so difficult for people not to use their telephone in traffic? One of the reasons is because it's a habit. So people use their telephones automatically and unconsciously the whole day. Also, an experiment showed in the UK that if you would ask British youngsters how often they use their telephones, they said 37 times a day. I check my phone. And then they installed an app on their phones to check how often they really check their phones, and it was 85 times a day. So that's twice as much. That's just one study that shows how unconsciously we use our telephones. We don't even know we use it so much. And in the right graph, you see the age at the horizontal x, and then you see the habitual use at the vertical x. And then you see that especially youngsters have a high habitual use. So they use their telephones the whole day automatically and unconsciously. And one of the reasons why young people have a higher habitual use is that they have a lower level of self-control and a higher need for social connection. And we also saw in our study that, maybe logically, but the higher the habitual use, the more people use their telephones also in traffic. And maybe you can go a little step further than habitual use. You can actually maybe also call it an addiction. Why is it so difficult to resist our mobile phones? Because our phones make sounds, vibrations, notifications, and every time that happens, our reward system in our brain gets stimulation. So dopamine is released, and well, that's the brain chemical that actually makes us happy, and we want more of it. So that's why we keep on checking and using our phones, because literally it makes us happy. And of course, phone companies and app makers, they know this, and they make use of it. For example, we have an inner need for order and overview and peace, and then when you see those red push buttons, we want to get rid of them. So we keep on using the phone. Also, we have a need for social rewards. For example, the blue markups at WhatsApp. So we want to check if someone has read our message, or the likes that you can get on Facebook. So people continuously check Facebook to see how many likes they have. And then rewards of the hunt. Well, Tinder and Facebook are apps that make use of that, because you can keep on scrolling endlessly for the next interesting thing. Well, also, driving can be very boring. It's an automatic and monotonous task. And research also shows that the more automatic driving becomes, the less the driver has to do. And the driver is going to do other distracting things than the driving tasks. And the mobile phone, of course, is an ideal distraction for such a boring long ride. Another factor that also plays part is overestimation. In popular psychology, they also know it is known as the Lake-Wabagan effect. In Lake Wabigan, all the women are strong, all the men are good looking, and all the children are above average. Well, Lake Wabigan is not a real place, it's a fictive town. And it refers to the fact that a lot of people overestimate their own capabilities and think they are better than the average person. And you also see that with driving behaviors. Quite a lot of experiments showed that a lot of people think they are better than the average driver, that they have better driving skills and also safer driving skills. And we also see that in our own research that overestimation or overconfidence is a high predictor for using your mobile phone. So a lot of people think it's dangerous for other people, but they can drive safely and send a message quickly. Or they can cycle safe and change a number on their Spotify list. That's also not that weird actually that people think that, because often everything goes well. So maybe that guy in that video that you showed had an accident, but people don't experience that themselves. Every day they go home from university to home, or they go from work to home, and every day they use their telephones and they come home safely. So that strengthens them in their belief that they are able to do it, that they are able to combine it. An interesting question, and we don't know the answer to that. There are no studies that have studied that, but will experience work? So will people that experienced an accident, will that lower their use of the telephone in traffic? And I have a video clip. I have a video clip on where they, in Belgium, they asked people in their driving tests for their driver license to combine using their mobile phones with the driving task.
Il y a une note ministérielle qui vient de tomber, je ne sais pas si tu es au courant. Il y a toutes des mesures au niveau sécurité routière qui vont être prises. On va au contraire obliger les gens à savoir utiliser un GSM en conduisant. Dans le permis maintenant, on va devoir passer à un test GSM. Tu dois pouvoir envoyer un SMS et éviter un obstacle et passer à côté.
Oh putain!
Ah oui. C'est pas moi qui l'ai inventé, tu peux regarder ici, voilà. Ouais.
Il y en a beaucoup qui vont se cracher avec ça, je te dis que ça.
Je veux bien croire, hein. Voilà, ton GSM, je vais chercher des frites. Regarde tout ce qu'on s'en va.
Ah oui.
Oh là là. Nous rentrerons en retard ce soir. Et attention que je corrige les fautes après, hein. Regarde comment tu m'as écrit, Nicole. Oh là.
Ah oui, c'est impossible.
Ah, je suis de retour ce soir. Oh ouais, là,
Non, c'est...
ah ouais, là ça te valait, hein. Bon, t'imagines, ça c'est un enfant. On va, vas-y. 443.
Honnêtement, j'ai l'impression d'être un connard qui
Ouais.
sait pas du tout conduire,
Voilà,
en fait.
voilà, exactement.
J'ai écrit n'importe quoi, hein.
Tu n'auras pas ton permis à cause de ça.
À cause de ça.
Oui.
Bah c'est dangereux ce que vous faites.
Si la loi passe, je roule plus.
Non. Tu tournes, oui, mais... Regarde la route. Oh.
J'arrive pas. Non mais j'arrive pas, hein.
Il va y avoir des tués.
Il va y avoir des tués, hein.
Il va y avoir des morts sur les routes.
Je sais pas conduire, attraper mon GSM. Moi je sais pas faire les deux, quoi.
Hein?
C'est trop dangereux. Je sais pas le faire, c'est pas possible.
Okay, well, I think self-confidence of those people in this video has decreased a lot. Another factor that's important in using our mobile phones is the social norm. So you can see with drinking alcohol, combining alcohol and driving and using the seatbelt, the social norm has changed over the time. So in the old days, it was quite normal not to use your seatbelt and to combine drinking and driving. But because of the change of the social norm, and of course also because of law enforcement, this has changed. And what we see is that with the use of the mobile phone, the social norm is not that clear yet. We also asked different statements, and for example, here you see hands-free calling when cycling, driving or walking should be illegal. You see that the results are very mixed. So there's not yet a clear opinion of what is allowed and what is not allowed. Maybe hands-free calling, yes, maybe handheld calling, no. It's not that obvious. And people are really sensitive to the social norm because we're social animals, and we would like to get approval of other people, and we think it's important what other people think of us, and we also want to conform to what other people do. Also, you see with social media, there's kind of a pressure to react fast. That's also the norm, to react fast, and of course that also endures into traffic. If you get a message while you're driving, you tend to respond because that's the norm nowadays. So marketing communication efforts also use this social norm, but sometimes they use it incorrectly. Even Interpolis, this is an ad of Interpolis, and we say 89% of the people uses their mobile phone while driving. That 89%, that was actually a study done between people from 18 to 24 years old. Does anyone have an idea why this is a bad example of an ad to convince people not?
Well, everyone does it. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So Interpolis tried to shock people with this ad. Like 89% of the people does it, but actually the implication is that a lot of people would think, oh, everyone does it. That's super normal to do it. So this really doesn't change behavior in a way we want to. Our ministry now has a campaign, a big mass media campaign. Mono is from monotonous, and you can also see mobile no in it. And they try to create a similar campaign like the Bob campaign. So they want to set a new social norm with, okay, I'm driving or cycling mono, you as well. But you can also think about other inventions that contribute to changing the social norm. For example, apps. Samsung made an app, and you can install it based on your own preferences. But for example, when you're driving and someone calls you or sends you a message, then that person will automatically get a message, okay, I'm driving, I will get back to you when I'm on my destination. This is a commercial of New Zealand, and I think it's a really nice example how you can change social norm in a positive way.
I sometimes see you pass outside my door. Hello, is it me you're looking for? I can see it in your eyes, I can see it in your smile. You're all I've ever wanted, and my arms are open wide. 'Cause you know just what to say, and you know just what to do. And I want to tell you so much, I love you.
Visit us at
Okay. Well, maybe there are more causes, but those are the causes that we found in literature. Interpolis wanted to know, okay, how many people in the Netherlands use their mobile phone and what are the psychological determinants behind that. So we developed a survey together with SWOF, like I told you before. And that survey resulted in a data set that is accessible for you. So I will tell you something about that survey. We set out the survey on a consumer panel, so those people get paid for filling in surveys. 4,200 people participated in our survey. People have to be 18 plus, have a mobile phone, and they have to fit into one of the 4 traffic rule categories. Well, usually almost anyone fits in one of the 4 categories. And then randomly, one of the 4 rules was assigned to you.
Is this a mobile phone? Is that a smartphone, or can it also
Both.
be
Yeah, we asked if they had a smartphone or another phone, and both is good to be in the survey. Yeah. And we used existing skills for our survey, but sometimes there were no skills for using your mobile phone in traffic. For example, with the skill of your confidence. So then we used an existing skill and we transformed it into our topic. Okay, when developing the survey, we had actually 3 blocks. First was background information, then the dependent variable, and then all the independent variables. So for the background information, we were thinking, okay, what do we want to know about our participants? What can be an important factor in using your mobile phone in traffic, or what is important to know? Well, of course, gender, age, education, that kind of variables. Mobile phone, what kind of mobile phone do you have? Do you have a private phone or a business phone? How many times do you use your phone at all daily? But we also wanted to know something about your traffic exposure. How many days do you cycle? How many kilometers do you drive? But also, when did you receive your driver's license? Well, maybe it is so that people that have their driver license for a long time, maybe they use their telephone more because they think they are able to. It might be. And also the type of bike, because we also were interested in the e-bikes you see nowadays. What is the combination of using your telephone on an e-bike? How many people do that? Okay, mobile phone usage, that's the dependent variable. You can ask that with one single question. How often do you use your mobile phone in general, while driving, walking, or cycling? Who thinks this is not a good idea and also has an argument why?
The skill?
The question. So we asked if you use your mobile phone with one single question.
People may say that they use it much less than they actually do, just so that they look better to the researchers.
Okay, yeah, that's possible, yeah.
Some people might think that sometimes, like once a day or something, or might think it's like 5 to 10 times a day, so you don't really know how much everybody thinks sometimes.
Oh yeah. You don't know the exact number. Someone else? Yeah, in the back.
I never text about driving or cycling when I'm walking.
Sorry?
I never text when I'm driving or when I'm cycling, but I do when I'm walking, and maybe walking is less dangerous.
Oh yeah, okay. Okay, maybe I have to be a little bit more clear then. So you got one of the 4 surveys. So one person got a survey walking, and the other person got it on driving, and the other person got it on cycling. So you always had one of the 3. Yeah.
You just mentioned that a lot of people are unaware that they actually use the phone,
Mm-hmm.
like kind of just without them really realizing it, so they couldn't possibly report this accurately.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's actually a problem with the survey research like this. So actually, it's better to observe the behavior, but yeah, we weren't possible to. But also, using one single question we don't know what people interpret with using your mobile phone, and when are you using it. For example, if someone is putting on navigation, would they think that is using their mobile phones? Or if they're sending a text message standing in front of a traffic light, will they interpret that as using your mobile phone? So we actually wanted to be a little bit more specific about what kind of tasks can you do on your mobile phone and when can you do it, so that we had a more complete image of mobile phone use in traffic. And also one person said you get an underestimation. That's actually so. I will tell that. I will come back to that. So this is actually the question that we used. Imagine yourself an ordinary week without holidays or other special days. How often do the situations below occur to you while driving, for example? So now we have different tasks that you can do on your telephone, and you have to indicate how often do you do this standing still or during driving. And standing still is that in front of a traffic light or a traffic jam. And you indeed see, when you compare the results of the one single question and this question of the same people, you see that asking the single question is really an underestimation of their mobile phone use. So they score higher on the total amount on this scale than on the single question. And someone also said something about the answer scale. Yeah, we really wrestled with the answer scale. But yeah, it is quite difficult to put a number in there, because a number, people don't know that. So we used this scale. Maybe not the best, but it was the best that we could think of. Okay, then risk perception. So how dangerous do people perceive this behavior to be? We also asked it in the same matrix form. And then we asked if people thought it was dangerous for themselves, if they do it. And we also asked, okay, how dangerous do you think if people in general do it? Because we thought that people would find it more dangerous if other people do it than if they themselves do it, based on that Lake-Wabigan effect. We also asked habitual behavior. We used 6 statements, like using my mobile phone is part of my daily routine. Oh yeah, and we also asked habitual behavior. So we used the scale, but we also asked, okay, how many times do you check your phone a day? How many telephones do you make a day? And how many messages do you send a day, approximately? Confidence. I'm capable to safely drive when sending a quick message. So this was a scale with 7 items. Social norm. We had 3 questions for the social norm. First question is, okay, how many do other people in your surroundings, important people, how often do they use the telephone in traffic? Another one is, how annoying do you think it is if people don't immediately pick up or reply? So that's more the social pressure that you feel of other persons. And then if people in your neighborhood would approve or disapprove you using your mobile phone. And we asked that for parents, friends, partner, and colleagues. When creating a skill score, you have to be careful with this question, because 2 of the questions contribute positive, and question 25 contributes negative. So you have to reverse code that question. And then we also added some other questions that we were just interested in. For example, do you think your mobile phone use in traffic is a problem? Well, I can already tell you, people don't think it is a problem. And do you have the intention to use your mobile phone less? almost no one had the intention to use their phone less. So that's also an indicator of how difficult it is to change this behavior. Okay, the assignment. Yeah. Like I told you before, a lot of efforts are marketing communication efforts are mass media campaigns, and they're directed to everyone in the Netherlands. Well, you can argue or think about, is that a good idea? Maybe it's better to look at target groups. Maybe there are specific groups, for example, young people or older people that use their telephone excessively, or maybe not, and that other psychological factors play a role. For example, maybe young people will have a very low risk perception, and risk perception might be a very important driver to them. Then it can be important to increase risk perception of young people. But maybe for elderly people, risk perception is not a problem, but maybe overestimation is a problem.
Is there any data on the percentage of young people versus old people involved in accidents involving mobile phones? Like, is the risk higher for young people to get an accident compared to older ones?
Oh yeah, well, those numbers are available. I don't know exactly who has the highest risk, but I do know that senior people, elderly people have the highest risk to die because they're more vulnerable.
Okay.
And you see an increase also in the deaths of elderly people because of the e-bike. But there are numbers on that, but I don't know them from head. So different factors might be an important determinant for different age groups. And we would like you to consider age differences for mobile phone use for car and bike, for those specific traffic rules, and tell us who and how to influence to decrease mobile phone use in traffic. And we would like to invite you to come up with a cool, innovative idea. And that can be an advertorial, a commercial, an app, a training. But it can also be something more small and local. For example, a cool traffic sign at the TUE campus. Well, I wish you the best of luck with the assignment, and Chris will tell you more about it. Oh yeah. I have an important note. The data set is from Interpolis, so you can use it for this assignment, but we would like to ask you to delete the data after the assignment and after you got your grade, and not distribute the data set or put it on the internet or something like that. If you want to use it for other purposes like a thesis or something, then please ask me if that is allowed.